All right, here with us now, Lieutenant Colonel Dakota Wood, Senior Research Fellow for Defense Programs at the Heritage Foundation. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for your time. I'd like to talk to you more about yesterday's airstrikes. Talk to us about the significance of that strike.
Or the insignificance. I mean, one, to make a strike, in some ways that's good, but again, it's another facility that contains supplies that can be easily replaced by the Iranian regime. So, if our forces have been attacked 30 or more times just in the last couple or 3 weeks, for us to go after some warehouses, no casualties produced on the part of the terror groups that have been supported by Iran. If you were Iran, would you take that as a meaningful signal or just another kind of tepid response that actually shows weakness? So I'm glad we did something, but sometimes a minimal approach can actually cause more problems later on.
All right, so Lieutenant Colonel, I actually do want to talk to you about what kind of signal it's sending. But before I get to that, U.S. officials also said that they are confident no civilians were killed. How can they be certain?
Well, that's just it. I mean, you don't know. We've got overhead imagery. We probably have signals intelligence, radio traffic, cell phones, trying to eavesdrop on that. So that kind of imagery and signals can give you an insight. But unless you actually have somebody on the ground, and perhaps we do, that's not something that you would want to share, to know exactly who might be in that area, it's all kind of speculation. So when they pick a time of day or night to strike, the type of facility, and you're looking at patterns of daily living, when do people show up for work and go home, those sorts of things. They're trying to minimize the human casualty, and so the expectation is no civilians killed.
All right, so this recent attack, I'm going to go back to what you had mentioned just a short time ago. It certainly was meant to send a message that attacks on U.S. troops in the area will not be tolerated. But we've already seen dozens of drone attacks on U.S. troops, on places where U.S. troops are located. Is this going to deter future attacks?
No, it won't at all, because, again, there's a handful of groups in that area. Some of them absolutely do the bidding of Iran. Others are on their own agenda. If they aren't being harmed in any material way, then what's the risk to them? I mean, what's the cost? And yet they gain propaganda value, and it enhances their prestige when you can show that you were able to attack an American target. Whether casualties were produced or not, they're striking at the great Satan, and they get rave reviews for that. So the complexity of our messaging is just all messed up from the U.S. Point of view. We flow all of these combat forces into the region, and then the president says they're not here to be in support of Israel. We suffer tens and tens of attacks on U.S. positions and personnel, whether they cause casualties or not. And then you say we're going to do everything we need to do to protect American lives in the region, and then our strike packages are 2 airplanes. I mean, that's the smallest package you can send into harm's way, because you never send a single plane by itself. So I think it's a lot of mixed signaling. It's not going to have anything in terms of deterrent value unless we have some kind of secret back channel communications going on, which are possible, but those aren't being revealed in the public world.
And it's so funny because I do want to ask you about that as well. But I want to touch on something you just said, the fact that the terrorist groups, they're getting this propaganda value. But to be fair, I mean, how tense is this whole situation? Because we know the U.S. is trying to prevent this conflict from expanding. But what happens if it does?
Well, I mean, that's a question so many people are asking, and you're addressing countless times as well. Nobody wants the war to expand across the Middle East. It'd be hugely damaging to the global economy, because oil equals energy. It's a fungible commodity. If less goes into the world market, then prices rise for everyone. This is almost exclusively how countries in that region get revenue, is through the sales of oil. So you can see that a larger war doesn't benefit anybody unless your objective is primarily to destroy Israel or to put some kind of a hurt on the United States. And clearly there are organizations like that. Hamas is not going to lead to the destruction of Israel. So why would they prosecute an attack? It was likely to be, one, to show that they are attacking the smaller or lesser Satan, and hopefully, in their view, to spur this kind of larger war that destroys their archenemy. So there's a complexity of rationale here. I think people are holding back. Hezbollah has 150 to 200,000 rockets. They could be much more aggressive. Iran could be more aggressive. They're not doing that at the moment, and it's probably because of these overarching interests.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.